Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. Why do I call it Dangerous Ideas? Because if everybody in the world were to receive these ideas, which are the truth, were to receive this truth, then we would have a revolution of the world. If we would have, it would begin as a revolution of the mind, and then it would result in a revolution in the way things work around the world, a systems change to full sustainability, to a peaceful world, to true freedom as to the faux freedom we have now that is predicated on wage slavery and exploitation and thievery and greed. It would be a completely different system. And that's why these ideas are dangerous. And that's why I am the most censored comedian in the United States. Although most of what you hear during this next 45 minutes to an hour is going to be completely not comedic, because this is more my journalistic entity, Dangerous Ideas. For my comedic stuff, you can check out leecamp.com. But anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. I don't know if you missed me, but I missed you. So it is a pleasure to see you all. And let's get into it. We're going to dig into the reality on the ground about what's going on with Israel, their ongoing genocide against Gazans and against Gaza. And I know that for some of you who are kind of, you're not been paying attention, you've been watching the mainstream media and you go, oh my God, did he just say genocide? Yeah, that's what it is. It's actually a dictionary definition. You can look it up and read it and you will go, oh, that's everything that's happening right now against the people of Gaza. Way over 20,000 people killed now, 70% of those women and children. And, you don't need me really to, again, go down the whole list, do you? Targeting of journalists, targeting of hospitals, targeting of medics, targeting of the ill and the infirmed, and so many others that all of them war crimes, targeting of innocent people. Anyway, I'm going to get into how Israel is actually losing. And that is not just there's many ways to view losing and winning in a conflict like this, a conflict being the euphemistic term for this genocide. You can say, oh, it's just a conflict, right? Sounds all right. Sounds kind of nice. Sounds kind of peachy. Sounds kind of like they're working together in creating a conflict. I know that's oxymoronic, but that's all right. I'm moronic and I enjoy OxyClean. But anyway, there are many ways to view losing and winning in a conflict like this. And we're going to go through some of them and show you how Israel is actually losing on a surprising number of fronts. And I do want to be careful to say that I don't mean that Israel couldn't just nuclear bomb all of Gaza. They could, and they are committing genocide, and they have killed over 20,000 people. So I don't want to sit here and be like, yay, Israel is losing, and this is all great. No, it's a goddamn genocide. So to pretend that it's something other than that Israel's losing in that regard would be just incorrect and to use a technical military term, dumb. It would just be dumb. Israel could continue and seems to be continuing to just obliterate everyone in Gaza. And so in that front, if you want to call genocide a loser or winner game, then they're winning genocide right now. But on so many other fronts, they are losing. And I want to get into a lot of those. So I have verified a lot of, all of what's said in this tweet, but I thought it was summarized pretty well. For the current Israeli president, Herzog, said, "The enemy celebrates when we are divided. I demand from the leadership to hold back with the campaigns." And that is one way that Israel's losing, is there is a major divide within. Let's see, I wanted to bring another article about it. I think that's the economy. Talking about the infighting. And this is Times of Israel, which does heavy Israeli propaganda. So this is clearly not some sort of hidden aspect, is that there is major political infighting going on in Israel right now. And Herzog is saying, stop fighting amongst yourselves. The enemy is celebrating. But it is funny, it is funny that when you do something like that, you come off as like, when there's infighting, when you do a genocide, when you perpetrate a genocide, there is going to be infighting, generally speaking. It is quite common. If you're going to perpetrate a genocide, you should expect that there's going to be some level of infighting because not everybody's on board with the genocide. It's not easy to get everybody on board with the genocide. And so you are seeing that within Israel right now is infighting in their political systems. So that is one way that Israel is losing right now. Here is another in terms of the Israeli economy. This is from Reuters. The Gaza war sends the economy into the unknown, and many are saying that the economy is struggling greatly. When you perpetrate genocide, guess what? A lot of companies, even if they don't announce that they're going to decrease their work with Israel, they do anyway because they don't know where things are headed. They want to be on the profitable side of things. And so the economy is struggling as well. To continue from this explanation, political and social instability is occurring in Israel after heavy losses in Gaza. Israel has already announced hundreds of dead officers, and the number of ordinary dead soldiers is still hidden. Today, there were also big disagreements and criticisms in the cabinet session against Netanyahu. The protests of the families of the hostages are increasing, knowing that without a ceasefire, their loved ones will not survive the war in Gaza. That's another way that Israel is losing in this regard. They are killing their own hostages. They are actively destroying any hope of getting the remaining hostages back. Many of them have already been killed, but they are ensuring that these hostages will not be, released alive. I certainly hope that all hostages on both sides are released alive. As many of you have heard me point out many times, Hamas still has, over 100 hostages. I don't know what the precise number is, but let's remember that Israel has over 10,000 hostages. They have over 10,000 Palestinians who have been arrested with no fair trial system, no fair jury, no fair, justice system at all for Palestinians. And it was 5,000 before October 7th. Since then, they've grabbed well over 5,000 more. So it is well over 10,000. Again, I don't know the exact number, but so Hamas has 100 some hostages and Israel has 10,000. So let's just remember to know and understand that aspect of it. So here we go in some more ways that Israel is losing. The protests of the families against the hostages. The economy is in a knockdown with a huge decline. A large number of Israeli settlers in the border regions of Gaza and Lebanon have been displaced and are unlikely to return anytime soon. But on top of all of that, you have the international community standing up against Israel. You have large combat losses that they're trying to cover up. Here is Israel suffers this is just a few days ago. Israel suffers heaviest combat losses since October and diplomatic isolation. This is from Reuters again, which is generally a neoliberal pro-Israel outlet. But, they're reporting some of the truth. Israel announced its worst combat losses in more than a month on Wednesday after an ambush in the ruins of Gaza and faced growing diplomatic isolation as civilian deaths mounted and a humanitarian catastrophe worsened in the Palestinian territory. Intense fighting between Hamas militants and Israeli soldiers was underway in both North and South Gaza a day after the United Nations demanded an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, and U.S. President Joe Biden said Israel's indiscriminate, that's his word, bombing of civilians was costing international support. Even Joe Biden has been speaking out against some of this. Now, meanwhile, he's shipping more missiles to Israel, so, take it with a grain of salt. But he's been speaking out against some of it because it is hurting his poll numbers. Genocide Joe is trending on Twitter just about every single day. I was just looking at the trending political topics. I was just looking at the trending political topics earlier today, and half of them had to do with a genocide happening in Palestine. It was, ceasefire. It was end the genocide. It was Genocide Joe. All of that stuff is trending on Twitter. But even he is speaking out against it a little bit because it is hurting his feeble chances of winning re-election to begin with. Israel reported 10 of its soldiers killed in the past 24 hours, including a full colonel commanding a forward base and a lieutenant colonel commanding a regiment. It was the worst one-day loss since 15 soldiers were killed on October 31st. And again, I don't want to say that Israel couldn't just completely obliterate Gaza. That is what they are doing from the air mainly. But their ground forces are not very good. And we're seeing that again and again, that the IDF on the ground is losing in many ways. But I mean, Israel has given themselves such a difficult task, is why they are losing in so many regards. They have given them the task of the task of committing a genocide, and they've been trying to do it at a much slower pace for decades. But then they've used October 7th, and I've covered a lot how they knew it was going to happen. They may not have known the date, but even the New York Times said they had extensive reports on how this was going to happen. And I believe that when you have extensive reports on how this is going to happen in the most surveilled area on the planet, and you let it happen, there's a reason for that. Call me crazy. And the reason is that they needed something to spark off their accelerated genocide against these people. And they are now doing that, the accelerated genocide. And while they are quite good at bombing from the air and killing women and children, again, 70% are women and children, and that does not include the percentage that are innocent men, which is a vast majority of the men. So 70% women and children, and they've killed over 20,000. And as I also have covered, they're hoping that disease will actually kill more than the bombs have, which is one of their biggest reasons for attacking hospitals and attacking the health systems. But many people are standing up. Even unions across the United States are now calling for a ceasefire, which is rather rare, both because unions are traditionally pro-Israel, although they don't speak about it a lot, American unions. But on top of that, unions don't generally try and get that political in terms of foreign policy. They may get political domestically. So for many large unions, these are hundreds of thousands of workers, if not millions. It's actually probably more like millions of workers. For them to get political, to take it to that point, is very rare indeed in terms of foreign policy. But the reason they're doing it is because it has become so horrific. This genocide is so disgusting and repulsive. And most of the world is fighting back against it in one form or another. And Joe Biden just the other day tried to rein in Spain, who has also spoken out against this genocide. Biden tries to rein in Spain after a veto of the EU entry into the anti-Yemen task force, quote unquote. Now, they're using the term task force as a euphemism for a war against Yemen that the U.S. has essentially declared, although the U.S. never declares war anymore. We just start bombing innocent people. But so we're calling it a task force as we attack Yemen, because they are attacking ships that are doing business with Israel. The Houthis are. And so this does have to do with Israel, even though it seems like it only has to do with the U.S. and Yemen. This all the source of this is Israel's genocide. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with his Spanish counterpart, Pedro Sanchez, on December 22nd to discuss bilateral relations and the dramatic situation in Gaza. Again, with a beautiful euphemism. Don't you love those euphemisms? The dramatic situation in Gaza. Yeah, it is dramatic. It's a genocide. Yeah, the Holocaust was a dramatic situation, wasn't it? What a dramatic situation in Gaza. The NATO partners stressed the importance of ensuring the conflict does not expand in the region, to include condemning ongoing Yemeni attacks against commercial vessels on the Red Sea. The White House readout of the call highlights However, the official readouts do not mention Spain's role in the recently announced Operation Prosperity Guardian. That's what they're calling their new war against Yemen. As reports in Spanish media have revealed that Sanchez's office ordered Madrid's mission in Brussels to veto the participation of EU naval forces in the anti-Yemen coalition. So Spain is standing up against the U.S. actions and U.S. support of this genocide. During an urgent meeting by the EU Working Group of Foreign Relations Advisors, Madrid voted against the proposal in what was described by sources in the know as a harsh and political no to Borrell, the EU High Commissioner. So a lot of countries that are traditionally U.S. allies are also not really cool with this genocide. Isn't that weird? They're just like, totes not into it, man. Why you gotta genocide folks, you know? But yeah, those are just some of the ways that Israel is losing. One of the biggest ones, though, that I haven't mentioned of how Israel is losing is they are basically writing the putting the nails in the coffin, writing the epitaph for their apartheid state, because the support that they've had for decades was slowly collapsing as people became more capable of getting the truth, as social media allowed for people to see live streams of the ethnic cleansing that has gone on for decades, live streams of the various war crimes and atrocities that Israel has perpetrated, as that allowed for the mainstream media, not in a large way, but piecemeal, has been forced to reveal some more truths about Israel. And it has gone like that for the past couple of decades. And so you've slowly seen an eroding of support for Israel. However, what they're doing right now is destroying the quote unquote support for Israel complex. I mean, it is just ripping it shred to shred. And there is very few people, I think nowadays, who don't now understand the reality that Israel is an apartheid state, the reality that Gazans live in an open air prison. I think there were a lot of people that since October 7th have read even the mainstream media news and gone, wait, Gazans aren't allowed to leave their area? Israel decides whether they get clean water and food and medicine? I don't understand. I thought they were like kind of like a nation, except they're not in the UN. Like, a lot of people are getting, even if they're reading mainstream media, are getting just fractions of truth that are like seeds in an awakening of what this situation really is. And that has been so pivotal in the changes we've seen and the strength of the opposition to this genocide. And Israel is just, it'd be funny if it wasn't so dark that Israel, in their quote unquote defense of their nation, have just shredded support for Israel, just shredded it around the world. And to me, in terms of like the long-term apartheid experiment that is Israel, to use a euphemism again, the writing's on the wall. This is the end of it. This is their end, and they're doing it to themselves, because you can't, the people, because the people that support Israel before October 7th, you had some hardcore supporters. Then you had this huge middle of Zionists, which just means, supporters of an Israeli Jewish state. Again, I'm Jewish. You can be Jewish and anti-Zionist, and I'm one of those. And there's millions around the world, and there are more Christian Zionists in America alone than there are Jews in the world by sheer numbers. That's how insane this whole thing is. But anyway, there's a huge middle of support or non-support for Israel that is people, and I guess I'm speaking more for Americans because they're the ones I know more, but people who quasi-supported Israel, but didn't really understand it. They didn't know what, they were like, oh, there's, it's a Jewish state and it's the only democracy in the Middle East, and which is, again, a lie, but and that was what they knew. And so they were like, why shouldn't those people have a right to have their state, just like everybody has a right to have their state? And that was this massive segment of the people who quote unquote support Israel. And now that segment is just in tatters. I mean, because they've got it now, they're being forced to, those kind of low information people are being forced to decide, do I support a genocide of this state, apartheid state that I didn't really understand? Or do I stand up against a genocide? Or am I still kind of in the middle, but I'm not going to support whatever this is? You know, the low information people it's just falling apart. It's just evaporating. And Israel's doing it to itself, which is, again, would be funny if it weren't so dark. But okay, so here is the last way that Israel is losing this war, this genocide, this conflict. And by the way, real quick, and this is one of the, I don't know, saddest and most significant ones in certain regards. Not sad in terms of the number of people dying, though. But real quick, just let me remind you, please hit thumbs up, please hit share, please leave a comment. It all helps the algorithm. I'm fighting constantly. Most of you know all of the censorship that's been done against me, or many of you do. But the latest one, which I haven't yet talked about, is TikTok just banned me last week. So, new platform. I'd only been really using it for a couple of months, but I had started to enjoy putting up 3-minute videos, which is not something I'd done in the past. And now I've been banned without warning, without right to appeal, no appeal option, without any information as to what I did wrong or any guidelines I violated. Zero. Just can't log in. And it says, like, rate our service or whatever. Rate how your experience was. Rate how your banning from our platform was. And that's it. Literally, other people have shown me that when they've been banned, they have an option that says appeal. And on my banning, there is no appeal. Zero. Doesn't exist. So that's my latest of many, many ways that I have been censored and continue to be suppressed. Okay, so getting into the last way, and I can almost promise you this one is not, you probably haven't heard of this one because this one has not been talked about much. But this person puts it so well. What Israel's doing right now is destroying the Jewish faith. The title of this Instagram by Age Linder is the name of the writer, but she's a great writer. She says, after Palestinians, Zionism's next victim is the Jewish faith. And just because I feel like this matters in this next topic. So I am Jewish born and raised, but I'm atheist by choice, Jewish by birth. But I'm a secular Jew. I'm atheist, but I have the Jewish traditions, the culture, the lighting the Hanukkah candles and that type of stuff. And a lot of Israelis are secular Jewish. They're not like heavy synagogue goers. There are also a lot of Orthodox in Israel, but there's way more secular Jews. If you go over there, it is, large percentage of people are not Orthodox. So a complete majority are not Orthodox. Anyway, so I thought that it's important that you know exactly what kind of Jew I am, which is the atheist kind, but still have the culture. And then, of course, there's those who don't have the culture, which they've chosen to no longer be a part of, not have the menorahs, not have the various other holidays. Which is also fine because, religion is your own thing. It's your own choice. It's your own, some people really into it. Some people are not really into it, and do what feels good to you. But anyway, so this post continues. Israel's use of religious symbols in its genocide of Palestinians is an affront to Judaism and has robbed Jews of a faith practice divorced from nationalist barbarism. And how beautifully is that part? That if I'm going to have a religious culture, now I wouldn't call mine faith because I'm atheist, but if I'm going to have a religious culture, I would like for it to be divorced from nationalist barbarism. How about that? How about we not connect it to nation states, which, by the way, the modern term nation state didn't even exist when these religions, Christianity, Judaism, all of them started. So the idea that you're going to link yours to a nation state is fucking dumb. But anyway, practice divorce from national barbarism. Israel has stolen and appropriated Jewish symbols, and of course, she's talking about the fact that the Jewish star is the flag. I mean, that's essentially all the flag is. They have Jewish stars on everything that says Israel, and that's one of their biggest things. Well, okay, fine. You have a Jewish state, which is anti-democratic. I think we can all agree on that. But to take the symbols and associate them in the mind of the world with your nation state and its barbarism and its atrocities is truly screwed up and just destroys the faith or the religion or the culture that is Judaism for so many others who have no link to your atrocities, your war crimes. It'd be like if the United States had a Christian cross on its flag. Now, sometimes we've seemed close to that. We do have "In God We Trust" on the dollar, but especially George Bush and some others have tried to act like our nation is all about Christianity. But if it were on the flag, and so every time one of these bombs is being dropped, you saw a Christian cross on the bomb. Well, what does that mean to Christians around the world who have nothing to do and do not support the atrocities, the war crimes, the killing of innocents that the United States has been involved in? Think about that. Now, the Christians are lucky. There is no Christian cross on the U.S. flag, but, sometimes it seems close. Israel stolen and appropriated Jewish symbols we hold dear, politicizing them as markers for state-sponsored genocide. Palestinians continue to suffer for Western Empire's spoils under the guise of safeguarding the Jewish people. After Palestinian Zionism's next victim is the Jewish faith. Israel and Zionists around the world weaponize Jewish symbols to intimidate, humiliate, and lay claim to that which they deem theirs. Israeli soldiers have branded the face of Palestinian prisoners with the Star of David. Israeli forces notoriously make blindfolded kidnapped Palestinians wave or wear the Israeli flag emblazoned with the Star of David. Israel and Zionists around the world weaponize Jewish symbols to intimidate, humiliate, and lay claim to that's what they deem theirs. Israeli soldiers, for some reason that is on two of her pages at once, so sorry for rereading that. Israelis taunt Palestinians with cheers of Happy Hanukkah during starvation. How will the Jewish people, being inextricably tied to mass murder, protect Jewish people globally? And this relates to a point that I have tried to make several times, which is that one of the most harmful things that is being done to Jews around the world is Israel's actions, because it is ramping up real anti-Semitism. And I don't mean the bullshit anti-Semitism that Israel tries to point at anybody who speaks out against them and says you're anti-Semitic, like they did against Jeremy Corbyn. They sunk his career, and like they've done against so many others, is just say, oh, you're anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. I'm not talking about that kind of fake anti-Semitism. I'm talking about real, legit, goddamn Nazis, like the ones in Ukraine that have swastikas on their helmets. I'm talking about those kind, and the kinds in the United States, the white supremacists in the United States, etc. That is getting ignored because this fake anti-Semitism that's used to try and for Israel to try and shut up any critique of them, it is actually increasing anti-Semitism. It's also increasing anti-Semitism in that many people around the world hate this genocide, hate to see it happening, hate to see so many dying, so many innocent people dying and children, etc. And some of them are, again, low information, and they point at all Jews for what's happening against Gaza, which is, yes, ignorant, but it does happen, and that is the fault of Israel. So there's just so many ways that Israel is making the world worse for Jews via this genocide. Let's see. As Jews around the world prepared for the start of Hanukkah this year, Israel murdered a beloved powerhouse intellectual. I covered this on the show. The poet and educator, Dr. Rafat Al-Arir, who they targeted. They made sure they executed him for being a well-known academic and for speaking out on Twitter and other platforms. They murdered him and 6 of his family and they were surgically targeted. They even called him to let him know that they would be bombing him. The reason they did that is because he was in a shelter at the time, and they somehow got contact to him to say, we're going to bomb you. If you would like us to bomb the entire shelter, we'll do that. Otherwise, you should leave the shelter. And so he left in order to protect the lives of everyone else in that shelter. But he was then targeted and executed for being a well-spoken academic, someone speaking out publicly who was getting attention. As I and many other Jews made arrangements for our annual Festival of Lights, Israel brutally assassinated Rafat as part of an ongoing campaign. Near the site where they assassinated him, Zionist soldiers marked the first night of Hanukkah by erecting a giant menorah on the site. Instead of the menorah representing the hope and the spirit of our people at this moment, it proclaims to the world a colonial military victory, a symbol of violent conquest and a war crime, in a place where a poet's passionate dissent was exterminated by Israel's death machine. Zionism was once a fringe nationalist political movement within Judaism, and even before Israel became a state, there were many Jews who thought it was a bad idea. Zionism was a bad idea. Only when its interests align with Western imperialism did it receive the necessary backing to colonize Palestine. But so long as Zionist nationalism has existed, so have anti-Zionist Jews, rejecting the notion that our people should murder and displace Palestinians to build a Western-backed settler colony. Anyway, she makes several other great points, but the one that I wanted to get to there that I have not talked about, despite, doing 3 months of live streams on this genocide, is that this is incredibly harmful to the Jewish faith, Jewish culture around the world, even for people that who have nothing to do with this genocide, don't support it, are outspoken against it. It still is harming the religion or the culture because the Jewish star is now being connected with genocide. And that's all thanks to Israel, thanks to the settler colonial ethnic cleansing project that is Israel. All right, I have more stories coming up, such as how the FBI is investigating the millions stolen by Juan Guaido that the U.S. gave him to be the fake president of Venezuela. Even the FBI is investigating it now. I will get to that. Also, how nearly half of unhoused people are actually employed. That is a very important story and says something about the U.S. economy. Yeah, that and several other stories I'm getting to right now. But before I do, real quick. Oh, someone's asking if I work with Ben Norton. I have had him. I am friends with him, and I've had him on the show many times, and he does great work. But okay. Real quick, so this live stream is going to go over to rumble.com/Lee Camp in a minute. Not quite yet. And it's free to watch there. Also, my locals page. It will continue there as well. And I wanted to show you guys, many of you may have followed my page, but you don't have the alerts turned on. Many of you may already know this. But so this is my page. If you just go to rumble.com/Lee Camp, this will be the first thing you see. Now, this is what it looks like if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't followed. Again, free. We're talking free. Click follow right there on the right, the green button. And once you click follow, you have to also click the bell next to it. And for those of you who are currently following, check and see, go to rumble.com/Lee Camp, check and see if your bell has a cross through it. And that means you will not be told about my videos. So you have to click that bell, which I'm doing right now, which is the little gray thing to the right of the follow button, and make sure it is not crossed out. Because if it's crossed out, that means you are not going to get the emails about my live streams, my other videos. I'm often putting up videos that are not live streams. So even if you are a regular Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and yes, I know today's Wednesday. I decided to give you guys a Wednesday show since we've missed several for the holidays. But anyway, so please do that. Again, this is free. Help out my show and go do that because it's goddamn free. Now, if you are into end of the year giving, I'd love for you to join up at leecamp.net, which will take you to my locals page. It's also the red Join Lee tab there. And if you're looking to give, if you're looking to donate just a one-time donation, end of the year kind of thing, then go to this Linktree link on the screen, linktree.com/leecamp, and you can give a one-time donation there. That Linktree also has links to everything I do. So if you're wondering where my podcasts are, which I have 3 podcasts, go find them there. If you're wondering about my book, Dangerous Ideas, go find it there. You can do all of that at linktree.com/leecamp. Thank you, Biscuit Maker, for the donation. Really appreciate it. But okay, in a minute, we will be going to justrumble.com/leecamp. But I'll give you one more story before we do that. This is about the FBI is now investigating the funds that were transferred to Juan Guaido. Most of you know Juan Guaido is the fake president of Venezuela. He never received a single vote for president of Venezuela. The U.S. just declared, by the way, he went to, he was a student at Georgetown, and he went to Georgetown, and he was declared, I don't know how old he was. I swear he was like 30 or something. He was a kid. And he was declared president of Venezuela by the United States. And the U.S. empire tried to pressure everyone they could to also acknowledge Juan Guaido, someone who never received a single vote for president of Venezuela, as president of Venezuela. They tried to get them to acknowledge he was president. And they ultimately got 50 countries to acknowledge him as president. But then those countries slowly started petering away, and it got down to about 19 or 15 or something. And now you're to the point that even the U.S. acknowledges that Juan Guaido, I mean, they meet with Maduro. So they just had a prisoner swap with Maduro where they released Alex Saab, a longtime political prisoner arrested by the United States. Anyway, international media has reported how the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation is investigating the destination of multi-million funds. Yeah, that's a typo. Approved by the White House as humanitarian aid for the government of the self-proclaimed Venezuelan president, Juan Guaido. According to reports, well, and that's hilarious on its face that they're giving him humanitarian aid, but since he's not the president of Venezuela, what's he going to do with that aid? How many people is he going to be able to give the aid to if he's not actually president of Venezuela? But he didn't give it. They stole it. He and others stole it. According to reports, the FBI visited the headquarters of EVTV Miami channel, run by media entrepreneur Carlos Mendez, to question him about the diversion of funds to his media outlet. The FBI suspects that much of the humanitarian aid is supposedly directed to Venezuela ended up in the possession of Mendez and his channel, which Guaido tried to replace Telesur with. So Telesur, television channel, you've heard of it. It was partially or largely funded by Venezuela. So they tried to create a competing channel that would do U.S. and pro-Western propaganda against Venezuela. So they created this propaganda channel, EVTV. They then give millions and millions of dollars to that channel, which is then stolen by the people that run the channel, as well as associates of Juan Guaido. Telesur reported that sources close to Guaido, whose identity was not specified, said that Mendez would have to clarify what the federal agents were looking for in his channel and how much money he received from Guaido. Democratic spokesperson stated that Mendez would also be implicated in the embezzlement of funds granted during the administration of former President Donald Trump. The embezzlement funds from the Trump administration exceeded $2 billion. $2 billion were sent to Guaido and others and disappeared. I mean, can you imagine how rich these thieves are? It's the amount of money is just unbelievable that was stolen from Venezuela. And a lot of this money technically didn't even come from the U.S., which the U.S., we have an infinite money spigot. So we could have just given them money that we made up on a computer because we can make up all the money we want. But a lot of it was stolen from Citgo, which is a gas company that was owned by Venezuela, but the U.S. basically stole it. And then billions of dollars in Venezuelan gold that was held in the Bank of England in London, and they just stole that as well. So a lot of this money was stolen from Venezuela, then given to this clown Guaido. And by the way, even the opposition party in Venezuela no longer respects Guaido. Like, even the people who are not president, who are supposed to be on Guaido's side in Venezuela, they don't say he has any power anymore. Thank you, Zazzoto, for the donation. Appreciate it. But of course, I don't have a lot of faith that the FBI will ultimately get to the bottom of this, because if push comes to shove, the FBI is going to be answerable to the same corporate clowns that did this in the first place. So, but at least they're investigating it. I guess that's half a step in the right direction. I'm not really sure. So yeah, that it is yet another topic where I've been right from day one. From day one, when the U.S. said Juan Guaido is the president of Venezuela, I told you it was bullshit. I told you it was thieves and clowns. I told you it was meaningless. And all of that has been proven true, although your mainstream media won't even mention it, right? They're not even talking about it. Barely, if ever. All right, the rest of this live stream is at rumble.com/Lee Camp. Rumble, it's free to watch there, as well as my locals page. Rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's rumble.com/Lee Camp. Head over there now, and I've got more stories, including how our public health is threatened by antibiotics in, I'll tell you where when we get there. Oh, well, I've always wanted to do that. I always wanted to be one of those, like, 6 p.m. news. Tonight on 6 p.m. news, that you have something in your kitchen that could kill your child. Join us tonight at 6. So I'm going to do that to you. Antibiotics in, guess the food. I'll tell you where they are that could, harm your life, harm your friends' lives. Rumble.com/Lee Camp. I'll kind of put it in the... There you go. Rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join me there and click the top live stream to join us for free. And make sure you click, once you get over there, click follow and click the bell icon. Make sure you do that as well. Okay, let's do it. Hold on. You got to give me a second to remove the other streams. To interrupt the other streams, like when you sneeze while you're peeing. Sorry I use that analogy so often, but it's very true. It's very true.